Good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for this webinar dedicated to multi-CDN strategies. It is co-organized by Dataxis and Lumen. So the objective is to address the challenges that are raised by multi-CDN strategies. It's the choice for content providers to rely on several content delivery networks to ensure the efficiency of their services. But our panelists will explain this more in detail during the session that is coming. My name is Seva Nebier. I coordinate the research at Dataxis. We're a firm specialized in market research on TV, telecom, OTT, and generally speaking, media markets. We also organize digital events and conferences. So I will moderate the panel after a short market overview to introduce the session, to provide some elements of context, and to share some of the observations that we have made here at Dataxis. Our two panelists from Lumen are François Colobert, Sales Director, CDN and Vivek Solutions, Continental EMEA, and Ricardo Moreira, Sales Director, EMEA, CDN Mesh and Multi-CDN Delivery. So I will let them give a few words of introduction of their responsibilities and their role in Lumen after a short market overview. So first of all, and it should not come as a surprise, we observed a global surge in broadband access worldwide. So in all regions of the world, more and more people are connected to the internet, and the quality of the connection is progressively improving. So here we see that around 1.2 billion subscribers have a broadband connection worldwide. And the number of internet subscriptions reached the equivalent of 54% of households. But of course, this hides different realities. In most countries of Europe and in North America, the connectivity can continue to improve, but generally we can say that the internet is accessible, affordable, and the quality enables most of daily online activities, at least in regular periods. And other regions, the upward trend might be more visible as the connectivity accelerates its progression. So it's the case in Latin America, for instance, and in some countries in Asia. It's from what we observed. In Sub-Saharan Africa and some countries of MENA, we can say that the price of the internet and the development of infrastructures make it complicated to predict that fixed access will become the most common internet access among households in the next years. And even if there are some ambitious, innovative initiatives in some countries. It doesn't mean that the population isn't going online, because smartphones and mobile internet are already widespread today and will continue to enable internet access in the next years. On the access mix, we observe a strong penetration of fiber since 2014. So it represents more than half of accesses since 2018, and it reached around 58% of households in 2020. The other accesses include DSL, internet cable, fixed wireless, which are 4G and 5G routers, etc. So the improvement of the last mile access doesn't guarantee a flawless content delivery, as we'll see later on, but it can constitute an important facilitator for the access. And all these evolutions enabled content consumption to change a lot in the recent years, driven by the evolution of the internet access and the growing data exchange possibilities. The amount of videos that are watched online exploded. So here we have an overview of one part of the legal market, the subscription video on demand, the SVOD subscribers. And we see that they surged to more than 800 million worldwide. So here we have split the figures by region to give an idea of the discrepancies. And just to briefly comment on this, we observed in our research that Africa and Middle East remain globally untapped markets. Even though the numbers are increasing, the trends aren't as sharp as in Europe, in North America, for instance, because these two regions are the most advanced in terms of penetration, and it's where SVOD platforms are the most attractive compared to other content offers. These two regions are followed by Asia Pacific, where the growth is also quite impressive when we look at subscribers. But when we look at revenues, it's not as high as the ARPUs, the average revenue per user are generally low in Asia Pacific. We also see that the average time spent on live TV is decreasing. Here we have the example of the US, where the trend is the most acute, as cord cutting constituted a real phenomenon that was triggered by the radical advantage of OTT platforms in terms of price and flexibility. And this is the main reason of this shift is the competition with the non-linear offers, which are represented on the chart on the left. So the number of OTT direct-to-consumer services has been increasing. We counted 94 OTT and SVOD platforms in North America in 2020, from 84 in 2018. And this adds to the AVOD platforms that we see on the second chart. So the rise in subscribers that we saw in the earlier slide matches a rise in the number of offers. What we observe here is a boom in the number of OTT direct-to-consumer offers in all categories. In North America, the count of pay TV platforms stopped increasing, and it shows that OTT platforms have taken a growing importance. So content providers are more and more likely to have their own platform and theoretically are more able to reach customers worldwide. So that means sending their content wherever there could be a demand. And this trend is highlighted here, where we can observe the internationalization of platforms. So we wanted to show a comparison between the size of the local SVOD market on the one side and the size of the export market of each region on the other side. So the column in light color represents the share of the region on the total subscriber count. And the darker column represents the share of subscribers subscribing to a platform that originates from the region. So concretely, what it means is that for North America, for instance, we see that 37% of worldwide subscribers are from the US or Canada, but 62% of worldwide subscribers were subscribing to a North American platform in 2019. So this shows the undisputable domination of US platforms, even if they are not the only one exporting content, as we see here. And to conclude this short overview, we see that our key indicators here are all going up. So slower growth is expected in fixed broadband, but it's not expected to hamper the growth of SVOD subscribers because they are also expected to be driven by the generalization of multi-account usage and also mobile consumption in some regions. So among the key challenges that we see for the next years, we count the broadband access and quality, in particular in regions like Middle East, Africa, or India, the evolution of consumer behaviors, and of course, with the COVID-19 pandemic and the consequences for internet and video consumption patterns, this will have an impact on the market. But we'll touch on this later on in the presentation. So thanks for joining us, François and Ricardo. To start, could you give us more detail about you, your role within Lumen, and the activities that you oversee? Starting with François, maybe.
Okay, ça va. Yes, can. So I'm François Colbert. I'm based in Paris. I am the CDN EMEA sales director. So I'm working in this area for a very long time now. I started my career as content providers in a major broadcast on OTT provider a couple of years ago now. So I was one of the first to launch some VOD services and live services on the French and European market. So after that, I changed to go to the advisory board and working for the CDN providers. And now I'm leading that team for Europe in particular.
Okay, and Ricardo, can you give us more details about your responsibilities?
Yes, good morning. So I'm Ricardo Moreira. I'm head of the sales for the client-side streaming technologies at Lumen. This includes our CDN mesh and our multi-CDN video product offering. That is one of the topics of today's call. I originally come from Streamroot, which is a startup that has been acquired by Lumen 16 months ago. And that is also known in the market as a trailblazer in the WebRTC video streaming.
Okay, so I slightly touched on the topic during the market overview, but let's dive into it now with more details. If we take the point of view of content providers, whether they are broadcasters, OTT services, or any type of provider, these are actors that might already be relying on one content delivery network, one CDN. So first, maybe in a few words, for people that might not be too familiar with the topic, how does one CDN help to deliver content more efficiently for content providers? And then, since that's our main topic today, what are the main reasons that can lead these content providers to rely on multiple CDN? François, what did you observe?
Well, there are kind of mega trend in the industry for now probably 5 to 7 years. Obviously, just before we start about that, and the development, we have to say that if you have a strategic or I would say critical activity on the web, in particular if you're an OTT provider or broadcaster, you need a CDN, right? Otherwise, it doesn't work. It cannot work because you cannot build your origin based on the peak of traffic. You got a big. Otherwise, it's absolutely useless and absolutely against all the cost strategy you can find on the market. So that doesn't work. So first of all, that's the thing. So in terms of evolution in trend, most of the time in probably 10 to 15 to even 20 years, the OTT provider and broadcaster used to utilize just one single CDN because it was more simple and to rationalize a little bit the way you are operating your business and was more simple, but you can find at the end some kind of issues in terms of delivery or sometimes in terms of cost. So I would say 7 years ago or a little bit earlier, some major broadcasters or OTT providers start a multi-CDN strategy. And that was mainly driven by, performances, cost, of course, we've talked about that, and we'll probably speak about that later on, content types as well, and traffic profiles. So that means that if you want to ensure that your traffic and your content is correctly delivered across the world or in some area, on some region, you cannot put your eggs in the same basket. So you've got to select the better for what they are supposed to deliver the best. That's the same for when you speak about the internalization of the platforms, the volume of consumption. Sometimes that can surge suddenly, and one CDN can be extremely good or extremely performant for certain area, certain region, or certain content, and something like that. But sometimes there are kind of weaknesses in some others. So, and in particular, when you speak about OTT provider broadcasters, you have to speak about the quality of delivery. Now, the bandwidth or the quality of delivery is based on as well the quality of the content. Most of the time now we are speaking about 4K or HD content, and some CDN are more robust than the other, delivering that kind of content across the world or in some region again.
And Ricardo, from your experience, what other challenges can make content providers' CDN strategy evolve?
Yeah, indeed. So as François just said, from a global standpoint, each CDN has a defined capacity, which is going to depend on the regional footprint, on the internet connection, with the different ISPs. So by essence, the performance of a given CDN cannot be the same everywhere. And a multi-CDN strategy allows precisely to mitigate this and to get the best of the different CDNs. And this is more especially the case for non-recurring traffic spikes, like, for example, live events drawing traffic surges. That can be expected, like the sports competition or the political events, but that can be also totally unexpected, like, for example, when sadly the Parisian Notre Dame Cathedral burned down 2 years ago. So this is something that they need to be able to handle, but they also need, the broadcasters also need to deal with unexpected evolutions. They need to be prepared to this. If we take, for example, the case of the pandemic, and especially during the first case, we've seen that the live traffic decreased a lot because there were no live events, but at the same time, we've seen an explosion of the VOD traffic, a real explosion. So Multi-CDN is an answer, and I would say an insurance to these new conditions.
Mm-hmm. And I'm turning to Francois now. So we're talking about the needs of players. We mentioned content distributors, content providers. Do these actors constitute the largest share of companies that are choosing a multi-CDN approach today? What do you observe from your client base and their feedback?
I would say mainly we got at least three types of players. The first one, of course, are the broadcasters, or the general broadcaster, the global broadcaster, or the local broadcasters need to use several CDN at the same time. The OTT service, I would say by natures, and the gaming platform too. I would say why the global broadcasters. I would say is obvious, but when they want to address, I would say, several regions with several type of contents, which is live VOD, a small object, or global website, they need again to use several CDN to address different markets like that. If I take an example, for instance, when you get a news report, or when you get some, as Ricardo said, some traffic surging during I don't know, live sport event, you want to make sure that your content will be delivered in the best way, and for that you use for instance, Lumen is very well known to be, I would say, extremely specialized, or used to be very specialized on the video live, when some other players are more, I would say, good or adapted or suitable for small object and website delivery. So that's I would say for now, as I said previously, the multi-CDN is a standard. I would say I don't know a lot of big player or major broadcaster or OTT providers that are using just one single CDN. I think this is no longer a standard, because the broadcaster have understood for a long time now that you cannot put your eggs in the same basket, and you can use the best CDN provider for the best type of content or region or areas. So that's I would say, yeah, every single broadcaster or OTT provider or some other platform like that are delivering, spike of traffic of video at a large scale with unexpected traffic surging like that, are using multi-CDN for now.
Mm-hmm. And if we look at geographical discrepancies, what are the main differences that can be highlighted between regions? And we can stay with you, Francois.
Yeah, okay. So that means that for a long time, you got some difference of maturity, in particular in EMEA, where you can see in Southern Europe, you didn't use, the level of maturity was not the same, but it's over now. I would say on the continent and in the UK, we can see now we are using internet and particular video delivery at the same level in every region. Some others are a little bit more mature than others. This is very well known, for instance, in the Nordics, where we can see a capillarity, and the capacity is very high, with a very strong use for a very long time of high quality video for delivery. But when we see, for instance, in Eastern Europe, or even in some Russia and some other outside of Middle East or Africa, we can see there a lot of differences in terms of delivery and quality of the networks, because some networks are not talking to each others, and that's the reason why maybe Ricardo will be able to develop a little bit later on that the way we are using our, I would say, global network is extremely supported by the new mesh delivery coming from the Streamlabs acquisition, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, let's turn to Ricardo. So concretely, how does relying on several CDNs allow to cope with the different risks that we just highlighted? Outage, congestion, security. Or to be blunt, why would having two or more CDNs improve the performance for an actor?
Yeah, good point indeed. Because when doing a risk assessment on the content delivery, we can identify the three main categories of risks that you just mentioned. So the CDN outages, when you think about the UFC fight back in 2018, where the CDN instability could generate some incidents on the platform, and at the end of the day that the content couldn't be delivered to the end viewers, paid end viewers. So this is definitely something that has to be mitigated. Security issues, obviously, because content, and especially video content, are extremely critical. They are constantly under cyber attacks. Just to give an example that I've read a couple of days ago, Manchester United Football Club got cyber attacked, I think it was in November, December. Fortunately, the website has not been impacted, but it could have been. And this is what providers, content providers, now integrate natively in their design, in the design of their platform. The other category is obviously, as you mentioned, the congestion of the CDNs. And when you think about the effect of the pandemic, this is something that obviously you need to have in mind. And multi-CDN is definitely all about risk mitigation, because ultimately the value proposition of the multi-CDN is based on several things. First one is the ability to load balance to cover the CDN congestion risks. So you can balance capacity for large-scale events or unexpected traffic spikes, as we were mentioning before. So you can mitigate that across the different CDNs. You can also optimize the delivery based on different regions. This is what François was saying before. And you can also speed the global software updates. So that's for the key point of the CDN congestion. Now there is more. There is obviously the redundancy that the multi-CDN brings, because this redundancy allows to cover outages and security issues. And if we step back a little bit and if we think about the linear broadcast television workflows, you can notice that every single component in the workflow, in the video workflow, is made redundant, especially to address that kind of outages or security issues. And what is interesting with the multi-CDN is that it is in the path to deliver the broadcast quality grade to the digital experience. So this is really key. Another point as well that could be identified as a risk, but which is at the same time the proof of the success, is the scalability. Because if you need to have a service which is scalable, it means that you are delivering to many viewers, and this is good. And to cope with this, there are CDN complementary solutions, such as what François was mentioning, our CDN mesh offering, which allows basically to scale a given CDN capacity or multi-CDN capacity in an audience challenging environment. So the concept is to use the network composed of the different viewers to extend this capacity. Talking about that, we see a trend among our customers, a clear trend to implement a CDN mixed composed of their own internal CDN for, I would say, the base traffic, the baseline traffic, plus one and eventually several CDNs on the top of that, plus the CDN mesh. So, and that's really a trend that we see, which is very interesting. So it's multi-CDN with internal CDN, service, I mean CDNs as a service, and the CDN mesh. Now it's also true, sorry to say, that multi-CDN can bring some complexity in terms of vendor management, in terms of making sure that all the vendors will be at the same level of technical requirements. But I would say that it is somehow the price to pay to deliver a robust and secure streaming services to the end viewers.
Okay, that's very clear. So let's say now that the decision to rely on several CDNs has been taken, what are the different methods that can be implemented to switch between each CDN? And depending on the actor's needs, which method should be favored? Ricardo.
Yeah, so indeed, once you have decided to implement a multi-CDN strategy, you need to find a way to switch between the different CDNs. And to make it simple, we can identify 4 different categories of load balancing solutions. The first one is based on manual switching. So this is generally done at the DNS level, and it requires a human monitoring and human operations. So problem of that is that this requires 24/7 operations, resources. It can be sufficient in some cases, although it's not very scalable and accurate. So that's one thing. That's the first category. Second category is about the automatic switching based on DNS switching. So solutions such as, for example, CDNs or NS1 measure on the network side the performance, the global performance of the different CDNs, and as well as the throughput of the different CDNs. And based on that, there is a decision which is based at the DNS level to switch the users from one CDN to another one. And this is important because the decision is based for all the users, is taken for all the users or a significant subset of users. So that's the second category. Third is the automatic switching based on manifest rewrite. So as for the previous category, you need to, the performance and the throughput of the different CDNs is measured from the network side. And this kind of solution is going to rewrite the manifest to point to another CDN in the case of performance is decreasing. So this approach is great because you can switch midstream, which is great because it is totally seamless to the end viewer. There is no propagation delay, but the point is that first you're going to switch all the users or a significant subset of users. And the second thing is that you add an additional SPOF in the workflow, which is the manifest rewrite itself. So plus it is pretty sensitive to the content owners. So that's interesting as well, and it's the third category. Now, the fourth category, and this is the category where Orchestrator, the Lumen CDN switching solution stands. So this is based on a plugin that is integrated within the player, and the switching decision is based at the user level based on real-time QoS measurements. So the thing is that we're going to switch only the users that have been impacted by the issue and not a full subset of users.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there are many different solutions.
Yeah.
If we look at one specific category of actors, the video content the distributors, which criteria should be considered in priority for these streaming actors, depending on their singularities? François, what did you observe?
Several criteria, I would say. That the first one is the quality of delivery, and you didn't measure exactly the same quality of delivery with the same criteria compared to other type of content. I would say, first of all, the quality is based on, I would say, sometimes the low latency when it is a kind of simulcast. You can some other really specific criteria are what we call the rebuffering rate. So this is just easy to understand when you click on the content and it stop, it start every 30 seconds or something like that, or where I would say the rebuffering rate is higher than 3% of the total. That means that it's absolutely, well, unwatchable. You cannot watch it for a long time, so it doesn't work. So that's one of the criteria. The other one is the start time. The audience is now extremely familiar with, of course, the TV-like experience or the movie-like experience. When you click on, you want to start immediately, right? You don't want to stop. Otherwise, probably you won't come. That's, I would say, extremely sensitive for the premium offer, for sure. When you pay for a subscription, you want it in a better quality possible, for sure. But this is extremely true as well for the free-to-air content. So when you look, I don't know, a football match on your laptop or your mobile, you want the same experience. And I can testify when I see my kids at home, they are complaining a lot and they never come back to the OTT provider, service provider, when it doesn't work like that. So they complain a lot. And I can understand with the quality, this kind of quality of delivery is key for the video in particular. This is probably true as well, of course, for the website or the application itself, but you can wait a little bit more. But for the video, you want you want the same experience as you are familiar with other devices or other networks. So I would say video is a special type of content, and you want to take a special attention on that, and you need to get some special criteria, monitoring or analytics to measure it. And this is one of the best and the best criteria we can find on that.
So Ricardo, how are Streamroot solutions specifically addressing streaming delivery issues?
There are two things. The first one is about the multi-CDN. So Lumen now provides a solution which is called Orchestrator, which is a client-side video delivery solution, as we mentioned. So because it is client-side, it is going to measure the real QoE perceived by the end viewer, and the switching is going to be done based on this real QoE measured. So it brings actually three things. First one, real-time or quasi-real-time CDN switching. So it's based on segment-by-segment basis. So it is going to be totally seamless to the end viewer, because it doesn't need to reopen a session to reconnect to another CDN. So this is seamless for him. The switching decision is also made on a per user basis, which makes the service more resilient by protecting the OTT backend from multiple reconnections. Think about a football game that you'd be, for example, streaming. If you have 200,000 concurrent users that need to reconnect to reopen sessions, this can be a problem to your backend. So at the end of the day, it brings a seamless experience to the end viewer. Okay, so this is for Orchestrator, which allows to overcome the challenge of the multi-CDN. Now, we also offer a product called CDN Mesh Video Delivery, which is based on the fact that the different viewers are watching the same live or VOD content at the same time. And based on that, we're going to offload part of the traffic from the traditional CDNs to the CDN mesh network. And by doing so, we actually allow to scale the CDN traffic and to overcome the challenges of the CDN congestions, for example. And as Francois was mentioning, at some point, we will, for example, we can force to do some intra-ISP networking to work around the potential bottlenecks that could appear at the interconnection points between the different ISPs.
And Francois, can you give us more detail generally on the multi-CDN solutions that are deployed by Lumen in terms of points of presence and also the experience of the company deploying multi-CDN solutions?
Yeah, great, absolutely. So what we have to mention, first of all, is that we are extremely comfortable with the multi-CDN strategy for several reasons. For a very long time, we are well known as a CDN provider on the video delivery. So that means that for a very long time, we didn't address the website delivery, a small object, because we were extremely focused on the video delivery. So that means that we are not sometimes, I mean, what I would mention is that we are not competing with the same asset compared to our competitors. We are honing and we are operating is our own IP network when our competitors are just a kind of overlay on the internet. That means that our edge server are totally embedded in our IP network. So that makes all the difference. So with that kind of network profile, we are able to manage end-to-end the quality of delivery, in particular for the video asset, which are our VOD and our video live for sure. So that means that when we are talking with broadcaster, which are already working with us, one of our competitors, we said, hey, not necessary to give us everything. We just are the best class in the video delivery. Just try and test it, and you will see the difference. You will test the difference. And most of the time when we are at that kind of discussion, it works. And we are able to enter in the mix. And most of the time we are, I would say, in a good position to deliver with the same quality of delivery that we are doing with all the others broadcasters we are working with in exclusivity. But as I said at the beginning, now the standard is the multi-CDN. So that's one of the reasons we are, I would say, highlighting, investing massively in our network in particular for that, because we know that, and we'll probably speak about that later on. Video is one of the contents that will be in a high growth for the next couple of years, and probably higher than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, before concluding, it would be interesting to have some precise or measurable results on the multi-CDN strategies. So Ricardo, could you share some elements of results in terms of efficiency or of cost, maybe?
Well, yeah, well, actually, in terms of efficiency, the decision to go for mono CDN versus multi-CDN is pretty straightforward. It's actually even binary. Have in mind the example of a major broadcaster based in Germany who is using actually Orchestrator. So this broadcaster had an issue on one of his CDNs. I think it was back in September, a major outage. And thanks to the orchestrator, actually, he could deliver the streams to the end viewers with almost any impact on the buffering ratio or the track switches, you know, the ability to move from one bitrate to another one. So it was almost invisible to the end viewers. And if you think about that in a mono CDN environment with a major outage on his CDN, it just would have been in position to deliver the stream. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of efficiency. Now the performance is also going to depend on the kind of solutions that you have selected, because there might be a propagation delay, and this is also the core value prop of the orchestrator to be real time. But yeah, now in terms of costs, it's interesting because there is an interesting discussion there, because some people can be reluctant actually to implementing a multi-CDN strategy, because they expect actually the price increase because of the traffic commit decrease. This is actually not what we observe for two main reasons. The first one is that this is largely counterbalanced by the price erosion that is in the market. And the second reason for that being that when you do that, you actually open the competition to the other vendors, which is not the case if you're in a mono CDN environment. So yeah, for these two reasons, I would say that I don't observe actually a cost increase of the CDN cost when you are in a multi-CDN. And I would say that this is the opposite actually.
Okay, that's very clear. So maybe to conclude, it would be insightful for the audience to have your views on the evolution, the expected evolution of the market. So François, how do you see things evolving for OTT content providers? What innovations do you see for the coming years?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that the video traffic is growing massively and in an exponential way for now, probably 10 years. Regarding the recent surveys, we can see that video traffic is now representing more than 80% of the total traffic, IP traffic. And this is just the beginning, I would say. What we have seen was since, for several years was the first one was simulcast, then VOD, then simulcast, compared to what you had on the TV. You can access on a mobile or any other device which is connected to internet. But that was just a VOD, simulcast, live traffic, special dedicated, and now you can see a new generation for the youngest, when you can see a new generation platform where I would say you are not only the viewers, you are playing with the audience, you are interacting massively with the audience, that generating a lot of requests, a lot of traffic, and the video is incredible in the core of that evolution for the next generation. You can see a lot of new usage coming when your content is always in your pocket, in your TV, and your laptop is everywhere. And you want to have the same quality on every devices, whatever, if you are in a train, on a subway, or everywhere like that. So that means that we are just at the beginning of the new usage. But what we can see is that more interaction, multi-platform, multi-devices, and interactivity. And this is something that was planned for a long time that just popped up, I would say, for 5 to 3 years. And now all the new usage will be the new standard, I would say.
Okay.
Soon.
Thank you, François, and thank you both for this very insightful discussion. We've reached the end of the discussion. So if you still have questions on the multi-CDN approach, don't hesitate to reach out to us after the panel. And thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saiva. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.